Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar from NJ Cannabis Insider. We're going to be talking about why the business of hemp is so essential. Here with me, I have Faye Coleman of Pure Genesis, and VandeVrede of HIllviewMed, and Mike McQueeny with Genova Burns. Thank you guys so much for being here. We have about half an hour, so I'm just going to jump right into it. Let's start off by just talking about how the coronavirus outbreak has impacted the hemp industry in New Jersey.
Yes, I'll start. I can be brief because I know we have two operators here, which is great. You know, I think the biggest takeaway for me is what I'm seeing with our CBD retail clients is there's been such a demand on the medical marijuana side of things. We don't have that infrastructure right now to keep up with that demand. So I think we've seen more and more patients pivoting to the CBD and hemp retailers to kind of find that alternative relief for what they're going through. So I think we've seen a lot of that, and I think that's been kind of great for the industry as a whole, because I think a lot of these CBD and hemp retailers are going to be kind of our medical marijuana or recreational marijuana retailers of the future. So I think having that opportunity to step up during a pandemic really reframes everything that they've been working for the last couple of years, and we're seeing it as more of a supplement to the medical marijuana program.
I'll jump right in after that. I think COVID-19 is, we're certainly in uncertain times. And for that, I think on the New Jersey front, at least, we're going to see some longer delays on issuing licenses that are going to be coming out. I think there's also going to be some restrictions with regard to capital from investors because right now, everybody's taking a wait and see approach. One thing in particular that I did find out is that a couple things are going on with small business loans. And we just found out that hemp will have an opportunity to take advantage of some of those small business loans that are out there. Primarily, if you guys haven't investigated already, the PPP or the Paycheck Protection Program or the Economic Industry Disaster Loan or the EIDL loan are two loans that are huge opportunities right now for small businesses. So I would encourage everyone who has not taken an opportunity to investigate those opportunities, look into them because they have some huge value and they've lowered some of the barriers to entry for loan programs that some of us may have been denied access to prior to. Also, I would also look at education. I think education is a huge gap for us for the remainder of the year because many events that we've had have been canceled. So some of those first year growers are not going to get that engagement as they get a chance to attend the many events. They'll have to resort to educational venues such as this, but it has to be as those opportunities present themselves. So that will be a huge issue. And last but not least, I think would be on the research side.
Yeah, and to add to all that, I think the biggest issue right here, what Mike was saying, is how the consumer now is getting product. You see the whole entire distribution channel shutting down. You got CBD shops that are closing down. You got vape shops that are closing down where people sometimes get hemp and CBD products. But from Hillview standpoint, our whole entire distribution channel on our oil, tinctures, and gummies have been pretty much shut down, and also the Kalo drink. So I think the strategy for companies that are in this and actually want to pivot is a DTC strategies where you're going directly to consumer. I think after COVID-19 passes, I think everyone is going to relook at how they purchase, buy food, products, cannabis, hemp, and I think the value chain where it's going to be is DTC, because who knows how long this is going to be, and who knows how long this is going to go back to normal. We pivoted very quickly and introduced fresh fruits and a DTC strategy, actually including our Kalo, which is a hemp drink, and including our hemp products, which is oil, tincture, and gummies directly to consumers. I don't think that's a long term. I think it's an online strategy to deliver to their house. But I think this impacts New Jersey and also impacts nationally. And the other issue is dealing with as an operator, dealing with the safety of your employees. our employees right now are in full gear. This is masks, this is gloves, this is pretty much almost hazmat suits just to package products that can actually go in boxes to the retailers. So this is going to change a lot how this is moving forward.
You mentioned that there's a national impact as well. We know that New Jersey in the hemp game a little bit behind some of the other states, even though they got approval so quickly from the Department of Agriculture to get their plan going. There's other states that have been under pilot programs growing hemp for years. How should we expect maybe this impact to look a little bit differently depending on some of these other states and the differences that we just have in where states are in the process?
Yeah, I mean, I think to Ken's point, from a retailer standpoint, I think retailers are one in a good bargaining position, right? Because arguably the price of especially bulk hemp flower has never been cheaper. But I think to Faye's point, consumers are concerned, not consumers, but retailers are concerned about weathering the storm, right? So they know that they still have especially an online demand, direct to consumer demand. But the question is, how long is this going to last? How long are the consumer spending habits going to fit into this block? So I think as a result, you're going to see more and more retailers holding on to less and less inventory, which is further going to depress prices, I think, nationally in the marketplace. So I think those are two interesting developments that we'll see as the pandemic continues.
Yeah, added to what Mike said, I think local here in New Jersey, we got our hemp permits, we're growing, but number one, to build out labs, to build out infrastructure is capital, right? A lot of companies across the country just saw an economic downturn that no one's seen before. They were speaking about, yes, there's loans for hemp, but everyone has to rethink how they're going to pivot and either scale back on their capital improvements or how they're going, what is the new customer, the new distribution channel, the new, what is that going to look like? And a big issue, I think, is capital in the future is to build out. So this will pass, this will change, but how fast is capital going to come down? You look at Wells Fargo yesterday, I think they shut down their PPP because I think it hit 10 billion. So there's only so much money to go around. I think this is going to change a lot, and everything is going to slow down significantly in New Jersey and around the country.
And I think I just would add to that on the positive side. As we come through this pandemic, certainly this is a global pandemic and not just tantamount to the U.S. So China has had a significant impact in terms of this pandemic as well, and their hemp production as well. So as we look at that in terms of imports that come in, that could give us a stronger position as we move forward. How much so, we don't know, because we know we have a surplus on the market. So there's a lot of uncertainty at this particular time, but there could be also a window of opportunity depending on how things move forward. That coupled with the fact that, the consumer right now is continuing to increase their level of education as it relates to CBD. So as that continues to improve, certainly we should see better sales as we move forward.
We've seen in New Jersey and many other states, medical marijuana has been deemed essential. They're going to continue to operate. Have we seen that with hemp, or is that something that states are talking about hemp farming and production continuing under these conditions and being deemed essential?
Yeah, I don't think we've seen, I'm not aware of any states that have kind of put it in their first draft of their executive orders, so to speak. But I think we have seen kind of the secondary level of it, right? So I think there were some press stories out of Texas and Florida about businesses either petitioning the chief of emergency services within their state or fighting summonses from being open as a result of these things, right? So I don't think the hemp industry, the CBD industry is there yet. But I think as the pandemic goes on, we're going to see more consumer trust, more consumers looking for these alternatives to things like medical marijuana and things like that. And again, it's important to remember especially from the direct-to-consumer standpoint, that just because you're not an essential business under an executive order, that doesn't mean that you need to close down all of your operations, right? So if you're a retailer, for instance, there are ways that you can have a minimum level of employees that still go to your storefront, and as long as you're practicing your social distancing and things like that, to enable your retailer to still sell to consumers not who come to the store, but sell to consumers, either online or deliveries and things like that. And I think we're going to see more of that as we move forward. But again, the important thing, also just in light of the safety for your employees who are helping you in that regard, is we've seen more and more police departments in New Jersey who are stopping people on the road, right? So the last thing that you want with a loyal employee who's coming in and helping you to keep your business afloat is them being subject to hefty fines. So one of the things that we've worked with clients on in that regard is if you do have employees who are doing those things, make sure that you provide them letters and protection so that if they are pulled over by police, they have something to demonstrate that they're not violating these executive orders.
Yeah, Mike did a good job answering that one, since it's a little more of a legal question.
I agree.
Moving on into the realm of CBD a little bit. Last month, we saw the FDA put out a statement indicating that they're moving closer to finally issuing the formal guidance that everyone wants to see with respect to CBD. But where did that leave us? Are things clear? Are a lot of these companies, still confused? A lot of people, are still hoping for a bit more guidance at this point. But where just are we now on that front?
I think we're in the same spot, and nothing really has changed. And with this whole COVID-19, I think this is not on the top of to get any kind of clarity from an operator and in the space is. Yes, we need clarity, but I think if one just uses somewhat of common sense and abides by food regulation and the legal way to market certain things on the products, and if you think it's going to cross the line, I would stay away from it. In today's environment, if you're just marketing your product, are not making any medical claims, and you're doing everything kind of where the farm bill is right now, I think you're in a good spot. And yes, there's still confusion. Yes, there's where's it going to go with the THC level and how you put on your bottle? Who knows? But I think if you just take precautions, you should be fine in this environment.
Yeah, and just one other point on that too. I mean, to Ken's point, I think it's more of the same. So I think the Congress was very clear in their appropriations at the end of 2019. Hey, FDA, we want some clearer guidance, and I think the FDA kind of came back with my dog ate my homework. They basically came back and said, hey, look, we think we still need some more information. We need another 180 days to come out with these types of rules and things like that. I think the only potential good thing that came out of their report that they gave in early March was, look, we may end up regulating this under a dietary supplement exemption, which they have, certainly the regulatory authority to do. But, at the end of the day, to Ken's point, I think what we have at this point is just reading the tea leaves, right? So we have several rounds of the FDA warning letters that they've issued to operators across the country. And certainly from being a lawyer and advising clients, we just try and advise clients to stay, get in the middle of the road in the middle of the day, right? To Ken's point, don't be too far to the right, don't be too far to the left. And I think as long as you're avoiding medical claims, I think as long as you're avoiding, marketing in a way that's untoward and the most recent, and this might be the most important thing to say in the midst of the pandemic, although it should go without saying, the FDA just issued some warning letters to companies, I think out of Idaho, who were marketing CBD products with claims that it could potentially help cure corona. So that if there's one takeaway to leave this webinar with is, please don't be that stupid.
Yeah, I saw that actually before we were in any of this kind of lockdown situation, that back in like February, a couple companies even then were saying, because of the endocannabinoid system and connections to the immune system, this would be helpful. And that seems like a foolish decision, certainly on those companies' parts. But going back towards the hemp side a bit, the USDA did ease one of the requirements with the DEA certification testing. They did take that into consideration about a month, maybe 6 weeks ago. And so that, now that labs won't have to be registered with the DEA until 2021, a lot of people were thinking that was a little bit of these farmers could take like a little bit of an ease with that. It would be easier to get tested, but is that just going to come back at us in 2021? And especially now with how things are shaking out this year, it's a little bit unclear. What do you guys think about that? Is that going to be helpful to farmers, or is that something that now is just kind of a lost cause?
I mean, I think it's actually going to hurt us in the long run, because there's 40 some, maybe 50 DEA labs. And then there's, I don't know how many labs across the country. And I've seen it firsthand. When you send samples to 5 or 6 different labs, you like 5 or 6 different samples. So until the FDA gets standardization on the labs and actually come up with how hemp cannabis has to, or in this particular situation, how hemp has to be tested with what levels of moisture and what this and what that. I think if you take 5 labs, they're all going to be different. I think they're going to be different for the next, year or two. And finally the DEA comes out and say, this is how you test. This is the protocol. This is what has to be done. And this is why. And we're still learning about this plant. And one scientist in a lab thinks this way and another one thinks that. So I still, a lot of the labs are skewed, and a lot of them are not up to standards, and a lot of them are using different testing instruments to get the results. So I still think all the labs are all over the place still. I think it's going to hurt us in the long run. I think it's just going to take a lot longer to get to where we need to get by not really making it restrictive for DEA protocols.
I agree with Ken. I think the inconsistency is going to be a challenge. And I'll just go back again and say the first year grower is going to be quite apprehensive in terms of jumping into this industry, just because there's so much varied and nuance around how we are testing and what the processes are and how we're learning about this plant and what's going to be next. So, when you talk about that in terms of capital, it quickly becomes, a go or no go decision. And those types of parameters will make somebody stop and give thought to if this is something they should pursue at this particular time.
And I think the biggest issue here is this THC level. And, they're giving error. It costs a farmer's entire crop if the lab results are not within that parameter. So
That's right.
It's going to be an issue. Absolutely.
Ken, you had spoke a little bit about some of the ways that people are buying right now, but what do you think some of the long-term impact of the outbreak is going to be on consumers' buying trends with respect to hemp products? Do you think, I know a lot of people are feeling particularly anxious, also trapped at home right now. Do you guys think we're going to see new customers coming to the CBD market as a result of just, people trapped in their homes, not knowing how to deal, or if there will just be any other changes to the buying trends?
Yeah, I think it starts with the supply chain. I think people are going to look now, right? This thing started in China. COVID-19 started in China. I think people are want to know where their hemp comes from. They're going to want to know where their bottles come from. They're going to want to know where pretty much everything that they're getting in a hemp product or any other product in the future comes from. But I think how consumer buy that product, I think we've moved into more of a DTC strategy where we're going online, they're going to buy that, and it's going to arrive at their doorstep. I think that's where we're moving, and I think that's where we're moving quicker. So being transparent with your product so the consumer understands what is in your product, and then therefore, delivering it straight to the consumer. Distribution channels are a lot more, they're built across the country for a reason, but I think because of this, it's going to pivot and we're going to see increased sales on DTC strategy.
I couldn't agree more. I definitely think that we're going to be in a stronger position in the US. China, there's going to be some questions in terms of the quality of their product as it enters into a US market going forward. Now, we have to remember that China's imports are mainly and still around industrial hemp, and is still not really get or formed into the CBD market as of yet, but they are, of course, focusing on that pretty quickly. However, Ken is right. We have to look at direct to consumer, what that looks like. And I think everybody who walks into brick and mortar, who looks online, they're going to understand where their materials, where the packaging supplies, where the product is made. All that will become very relevant and very important going forward post-pandemic, or actually within the pandemic right now.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that I'm concerned about is new entrants into the marketplace, in the sense that, like any other retail, right? There's a lot of impulse buying that goes on, and there have been studies, and I think, when you talk about hemp or CBD storefronts that sell that exclusively, I think they're very similar to cannabis dispensaries, and there were some studies, I think from 2018, 2019, that talked about that anywhere between 46% and 70% of in-store spending is impulse. Going into the store and seeing something for the first time that you never saw before, and you're taking a risk on and buying it, right? And that's how our retail marketplace has operated for the last couple of years. And that's one of the concerns I have. I think for established businesses, it'll be good, because I think people, have gotten more accustomed to buying things in bulk. But for those new market entrants who are looking to get that toehold, how are you really going to get your brand name in front of a new potential consumer? Again, webinars and things like that, those are great ideas, but I think people just aren't as accustomed and comfortable with it yet. So that's something that I'm hopeful over time people maybe get more comfortable with in terms of online buying. But that's been the strength of brick and mortar retail, and hopefully that continues and evolves, as the pandemic keeps us all at home.
Yeah, if I could add to that, we launched our hemp-infused line, Kalo, and we are an allied distribution, which is every liquor store in New Jersey. We are also in supermarkets and convenience stores, and ready to launch in New York City. So the impulse buy for our brand to get out there, our numbers were off from impulse, because people they were grabbing a bottle of wine and then they were grabbing a Kalo, or they were in a convenience store grabbing a Red Bull or a water and then they were grabbing a Kalo. So that's going to be an issue, to Mike's point, that you're not going to get that. All right, I'll just add this to my order. I'll grab this or I'll grab that. So it's new companies, new brands it's going to be a struggle to make it into the market.
Okay. I think we have time for just about one more question. So just kind of wanted to round it out. Looking at, we in New Jersey tend to look to Pennsylvania, New York. They've been in sort of similar positions as us as far as hemp goes, and now they're in very similar positions as far as the outbreak goes. What kind of benefits and what are our challenges when we look at our neighbors in the position that we are in compared to them right now?
I think we're all in this together. New York and Pennsylvania are going through the same things. Like I said before, we were supposed to launch Kalo in New York City April 1st. We were supposed to launch at 20,000 stores. That whole entire distribution channel is at the table right now until this thing passes. So yes, we're neighboring state, but we all act like Northeast almost. So I think what happens here in Jersey is happening in New York, which New York is it's the epicenter right now. But I think we're all in this together, and we're all going to have to get through this together and see what the new business is moving forward.
I would agree. I would say a couple of things. To Ken's earlier point, we do have to look at our supply chain and understand how do we optimize and where to become lean with regard to our supply chain operations. At the same time, we have to look at new strategies around co-op opportunities. And I don't think we've investigated that enough, especially here within the Northeast, where we're in such close proximity and there's such opportunity for it. And I think the last piece would be on the multi-channel approach. I think, yeah, we've got to do direct to consumer. I think brick and mortar is still relevant, but I just think from a multi-channel opportunity, we have to investigate that, become more thorough, and just look at various strategies that are going to lead to success as we move into a new paradigm.
Then, of course, Ken and Faye, I know you're both you're founding members of the Hemp Policy Committee. Can you just give everybody, I know that's a little bit new news and that kind of happened during this whole pandemic, can you give a little bit of a breakdown of just what that is and what it entails and what you hope to be accomplished?
Yeah, sure. The idea here is this is new to New Jersey. So from experienced people that have been in it, and also new farmers coming in, a lot of these new farmers, and even the Department of Ag and the supply chain here in New Jersey, no one really knows what to expect. So we're trying to help farmers, help ag, and kind of work through these issues of how the supply could work in New Jersey, what would work great for farmers, for processors, retailers. It's kind of a think tank of bringing all ideas together to help New Jersey from a standpoint of really launch New Jersey the right way, so that farmers are not stumbling out the gate. They're planting 100 acres and all of a sudden they lose their whole entire crop. So we're trying to be cautious. We're trying to bring a lot of experience to the table to meet with the ag and say, hey, how can everyone who wants to be involved in hemp industry in New Jersey, and would be the best for new entrants into the hemp space. So that's kind of what we're putting together.
And the only thing I would add to that is that we would want to focus in on education. As a lot of individuals have determined that they want to get into this industry, Ken is absolutely right. We've got to understand how to better help our farmers, not just make the connections in terms of understanding the business, but also connect within the business. I think there is many connections to be made in terms of the buyers that are out there. Specifically, if you want to get into this business, you better know where the buyers are. We have to help with testing protocols. We got to get clarity from the government in terms of the New Jersey rules, and we should be pushing for to help those farmers that are out there. And then, making certain that we use the team to lobby in favor of those farmers and the overall supply chain to make sure that we can succeed in 2021 and beyond.
Okay, well, thank you all so much for joining us today, and to everyone that tuned in. Again, I'm Amanda Hoover, reporter with NJ.com and contributor to NJ Cannabis Insider. And today, again, just in case anybody missed in the beginning, our panelists have been Faye Coleman of Pure Genesis, Ken VandeVrede of HIllviewMed, and Mike McQueeny of Genova Burns. Thank you all so much. Everybody stay safe and stay sane out there.